will fall. So, are there studies showing that immigration is linked to crime? Well, to be fair and balanced, you could point to this one, as reported by Fox News, written by John R. Lott for the Crime Prevention Research Center, a center founded by John Lott. The study uses a single sample from the Arizona State Prison to conclude that even though illegal immigrants make up 2% of Arizona's population, they're responsible for 8% of prisoners. The author then goes on to speculate that, quote, if undocumented immigrants committed crime nationally as they do in Arizona in 2016, they would have been responsible for over 1,000 more murders, 5,200 rapes, 8,900 robberies, 25,300 aggravated assaults, and 26,900 burglaries. Now, for starters, I'm pretty sure you can't just take the statistics of a single prison and apply it to the entire United States like that. Using that same logic, I could look at the prison populations of rural Virginia and New York and conclude that a large percentage of criminals in the US are former Trump advisors. But also, and more importantly, this study is wrong. At least so says the libertarian think tank the Cato Institute, which found John's methods to be way off because he accidentally lumped both legal and illegal immigrants together. When going back over the data and giving the most generous estimate, Cato found that 8% number to be more like 4% at the most. Also, that John R. Lott guy only conducts studies about hardcore conservative talking points, including one exploring if abortions cause more out-of-wedlock births, for science reasons. Also, John Lott once admitted to peer reviewing his own studies and even got caught creating a sock puppet account defending his work. When he released a book claiming that concealed carry laws reduce crime, he was asked for his data and then couldn't provide it, claiming his hard drive deleted it all. He is bad at his job, and also the only source of data implying that immigration leads to crime. Are you all still with me, boomers? This article you read on Fox News or the Washington Times, when traced back to its source, is wrong. Just as wrong as HUD was when he tried to take over his father's ranch.
You're an unprincipled man, HUD.
Now, going back to those libertarians, when the Cato Institute collected crime statistics from the Texas Department of Public Safety, data that specifically separated crime by legal and illegal immigrants, they found that both legal and illegal immigrants had a lower crime rate than native residents. But if you don't want to listen to a bunch of libertarians, which you know is understandable, here is another study from a criminologist at the University of Wisconsin that used data from the Center for Migration Studies and the Pew Research Center, as well as the FBI Uniform Crime Report Center, to track crime in all 50 states starting from 1990 to 2014. It concluded that undocumented immigration does not increase violence. Rather, the relationship between undocumented immigration and violent crime is generally negative, although not significant in all specifications. They also used the same data set to reach the same conclusion about nonviolent crime as well. So not to criticize the president or anything, but it seems like his tweet about crime isn't true and is in fact a lie. How about this other thing he said? With his lips, which I'm sure have never been used to kiss or tongue a wall or wall-like structure.
Vast quantities of lethal narcotics are flooding through our border and into our communities, including meth, cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl. Heroin alone kills 300 Americans a week, 90% of which comes across our southern border.
He's technically not wrong. Lethal narcotics are coming through our borders, and according to the DEA, 90% of heroin does come from Mexico. But according to the DEA, from the very same statistics the president is citing, the majority of the flow is through POVs, privately owned vehicles, entering the United States at legal ports of entry. Legal, meaning that a bigger border wall will do nothing to stop heroin coming into the US because it's coming through the, how can I word this?
And we're gonna have that big, beautiful door in the wall?
That's it. This is actually the same case for both fentanyl and cocaine, the former actually becoming a problem for the US Customs and Border Protection, thanks to many Americans having the drugs mailed to them from overseas. And according to the DEA, a significant amount of this is coming from China. This is a fact that even that president guy from before agrees with. Albeit in the worst possible way a person can agree with a fact. Point is, as claimed by our own country, building a wall will not stop the majority of drug trafficking on account of illegal crossing having very little to do with how we get our drugs. So if you're keeping score, that's 2 reasons to build this wall that are actually not good reasons. They are dumb, untrue reasons. Man, this is fun. Let's keep playing. Next up, terrorism. As our wall sex not having president said in the past, we need to build the wall to curb terrorists getting into our country through vulnerabilities in the border. Only our own State Department says there have been no cases of terrorist groups exploiting these gaps to move operations through the region, even when the White House claimed that 4,000 known or suspected terrorists come into our country legally. They had to later concede that those numbers were actually terrorists apprehended at airports and not our border. This is something I can't stress enough. We don't even need to cite studies or fact-check this claim. Literally every time someone from the Trump administration has claimed that terrorists are crossing the southern border, another agency, like Homeland Security, comes out to correct them on this. It's like a hilarious one-sided call and response where one person says, "Can I get a whoop whoop?" while a second, smarter person steps in and says, "Actually, we don't need one whoop, let alone two." That's exactly what this is like. So, geez, that's terrorism. What about illegal or legal immigrants hurting the economy and taking our jobs? This is once again an area where we have to rely on the credibility of studies and where they get their data from. In the anti-immigration column is a study cited by the Washington Examiner that supposedly disproves that immigrants only take jobs that Americans don't want. Right away, it should be noted that this was conducted by the Center for Immigration Studies, an organization flagged by the Southern Poverty Law Center for circulating work by white nationalists and anti-Semitic writers in its newsletter. This includes Holocaust deniers. So, yeah, good job, Washington Examiner. But even if we pretend the study isn't from a hate group, all it really says is that every job commonly seen as being overrun by illegal immigrants is actually being done mostly by non-immigrants. You can say that data proves that Americans still want to do jobs that immigrants are, quote, taking away, but it also proves that they aren't actually taking those jobs away in the first place. And again, hate group. Let's look at a few more extensive non-racist studies, shall we? Like this one from the German Economic Research Institute, IZA, which found no correlation between unemployment and immigration rates in any of the countries it looked at, including the United States. It even cites a specific study between May and September of 1980 when 125,000 Cuban immigrants entered the workforce in Miami, only to create no negative effects on native Floridians. This is attributed to U.S. cities being able to absorb immigrants into growing industries without risking the jobs of native workers. Meanwhile, a 2017 study by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, which, if you're unaware, is an organization first founded in 1863 with help of Abraham Lincoln. This study found that, quote, the long-term impact of immigration on the wages and employment of native-born workers overall is very small, and also that while first-generation immigrants are more costly to the government, the second generation are among the strongest fiscal and economic contributors in the United States. And finally, the Pew Research Center found that as the baby boomer workforce, that's you, decreases with retirement, we're actually going to need immigrants to fill in those jobs. But we're getting off topic. This is about a physical wall that our totally smart president wants to build, claiming that it would reduce crime, drugs, and illegal immigration. And yet all the information we have shows that illegal immigrants aren't causing a lot of crime, nor are drugs entering the country via areas where a wall would help. But let's say you still don't like illegal immigrants and don't want them here for reasons. Well, according to the goddamn Department of Homeland Security, twice as many illegal immigrants get in the country because they overstay their visas than they do jumping the border, meaning that you could ignore everything else I just said and should still see why building a physical barrier doesn't solve illegal immigration. Because that's not how they are coming in, Donald Trump, who I assume Barron will show this video to. Thank you, Barron. And finally, there's a talking point that it's a growing humanitarian crisis.
Tonight, I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border.
And yet, according to the U.S. Border Patrol's own numbers regarding apprehensions at the border, this growing crisis has gone from almost 2 million illegal border crossings in 2000 all the way down to 310,000 in 2017. Crossings were going down before Trump came in to fix it. The growing crisis has steadily decreased, says our own Border Patrol. So along with every study I've showed you today showing that a wall wouldn't stop illegal immigration, We don't even have evidence that it's a